Davis here. Welcome, friends. I hope your day went gently. And where are you listening from tonight? Tell me below. I always enjoy reading your notes. Thank you for joining these daily cozy stories. They mean a lot. Tonight, we travel to Eleanor Gray's quiet village. A simple visit, or so it seemed. But before Miss Marple even arrived, something had already gone wrong. The morning was quiet. The cottage felt calm. Miss Marple sat with her tea. The cup warmed her hands. She liked that. The room was still. The cold air carried no rush. A simple start. Nothing heavy, nothing loud. She folded her knitting. She placed it neatly on the chair. She reached for her coat. A trip waited. Eleanor Gray had written to her. A short letter. Kind words, but a careful tone underneath. Miss Marple noticed it at once. She finished her tea. She set the cup down. She stood slowly. She checked the window latch. She always checked it. It clicked as it should. Routine gave her balance. Outside, the morning felt sharp. A cold wind touched her face. Frost lined the garden gate. She wrapped her scarf. She stepped onto the path. The road to the station was silent. She knew every turn, every hedge, every fence. Today, something felt different. Not bad, not dangerous, just different. A quiet shift in the air. A man passed her. He nodded once. His eyes stayed low. His steps seemed heavy. Worry clung to him. Miss Marple noticed the small details. They always mattered. She reached the station bench. She sat down gently. The bench felt cold. Passengers stood nearby. They spoke softly. Short remarks, quiet tones, no laughter, no brightness. She noticed that too. The train arrived slowly. She stepped inside. She chose a corner seat. Corners helped her think. The carriage was cold. A woman hugged her gloves. A younger man checked the window often. Another man held a newspaper. His hands trembled. No one seemed settled. Miss Marple watched quietly. She never stared. She only observed. People revealed more than they knew. She opened her small thermos. She drank a little tea. Warm, simple, comforting. She liked simple things. Her thoughts returned to the letter. Eleanor Gray rarely used urgent tones. This time she had. One line stood out. "I would feel better if you came." Not a usual invitation. Miss Marple had read it twice. A request behind the request. Something unsaid. The train moved through pale fields. Quiet countryside. Low sky. Light wind. A soft view. Nothing dramatic. Just steady movement. Miss Marple watched each field pass. She waited for the first glimpse of Eleanor's village. Her fingers rested on her bag. Her mind stayed clear. Something waited ahead. She could feel it. The train slowed again. The carriage shifted. The sound changed. The air felt different. Not much, just slightly. And Miss Marple noticed the change. At once, Miss Marple felt the stillness shift. Just slightly. The train stopped. Miss Marple stepped down carefully. Cold air touched her face. The small station felt quiet. Too quiet. She noticed that at once. She walked toward the lane. The snow crunched lightly under her shoes. No chatter around her, no easy morning greetings. Villagers kept their heads down. They moved quickly. They avoided eye contact. A small sign of tension. Miss Marple stored that detail. Eleanor Gray's cottage stood at the corner. Warm light glowed inside. Smoke rose from the chimney. It should have felt comforting. But something in the air felt tight. Miss Marple sensed it before she knocked. Eleanor opened the door fast. Her face looked strained. Her hands shook slightly. She forced a smile. "Come in, Jane," she said. Her voice tried to sound steady. It didn't succeed. Miss Marple noticed the effort. The parlor was warm. A kettle steamed on the table. A tea tray waited. Everything looked tidy. But the room felt unsettled. Miss Marple felt it immediately. A kind of held breath. Before she sat, the door shook again. A woman entered without waiting. Annie Rookwood. Friendly face. Worried eyes. She nodded at Miss Marple. "Sorry, Eleanor. I needed to ask." She paused when she saw the guest. "Oh, you've arrived already." Her voice carried strain. She clutched her basket too tightly. Miss Marple noticed the grip. Footsteps sounded outside. Another figure passed the window. Mrs. Pritchard. She always watched. She always knew something. She paused by the gate. She stared at the cottage door. Then she walked on quickly. Not a usual walk. Too stiff, too alert. A knock followed. Constable Merrick stepped in. Polite. Calm. But his eyes kept shifting. He kept glancing at the street, like someone expecting more trouble. He nodded at Miss Marple. "Good morning, ma'am." His tone was too gentle, too careful. Miss Marple noticed that too. Alden Pierce walked by next. Tall, quiet, hand in his coat pocket. He didn't look toward the house. He walked fast, his jaw clenched. He seemed locked inside his own thoughts. Clara Pierce was not with him. That alone told Miss Marple enough. Mr. Harwood passed shortly after. He greeted Eleanor softly. He avoided naming anything. He avoided asking anything. He stood still for a moment, then left with a slow sigh. He looked like a man holding back knowledge. Miss Marple studied them all. Each small movement held meaning. Each hesitation added weight. The village felt pressed by something unspoken. Worry moved from door to door. People watched each other. People avoided each other. A sign that news had spread, but not openly, not safely. Annie Rookwood stepped closer. "Should we tell her now?" she whispered. Eleanor lifted a hand. Not yet. Her eyes were tired, her breath unsteady. She turned to Miss Marple. She reached for the door. She closed it slowly. Her fingers trembled. "Eleanor." Gray closes the door and finally explains what happened. Eleanor Gray sat down slowly. Her hands stayed folded. She took one short breath, then another. Miss Marple waited quietly. She never rushed anyone. Eleanor looked toward the window. The glass showed only cold light. "Something terrible happened," she said. Her voice stayed low, even in her own home. Miss Marple nodded once. "I thought as much," she said. Her tone was calm, soft, inviting. Eleanor leaned closer. It was Clara Pierce. The room shifted. Not loudly, just slightly. Annie Rookwood stepped forward. She held her scarf tightly. Her eyes were full of worry. "She's gone," Annie said. "She died yesterday morning." Miss Marple kept her posture steady. "How did it happen?" she asked. She kept her voice gentle. Eleanor hesitated. "That's the part no one agrees on." Constable Merrick moved near the fire. He rubbed his hands once. "I was called in early," he said, "but the story changed 3 times." Annie nodded. "That's true. Everyone says something different." Miss Marple folded her hands. "What do they say?" Eleanor gave a tired sigh. "One person says a fall, another says a fainting spell. Someone else says a gas issue." Constable Merrick added another detail. "And one woman insisted it was the cold. She swears Clara froze in the sitting room, which makes no sense. The house has good heat." Annie lowered her voice. "And Mrs. Pritchard is telling everyone it was poison." Her voice trembled. She always spreads the worst ideas. Miss Marple listened without reaction. Contradictions never surprised her. They helped her. Every mismatch meant something. People always reveal more than they intend, especially when they whisper. Eleanor continued. "The doctor said it looked like gas, but not fully. He wasn't sure." Miss Marple raised one eyebrow. "Not sure?" Eleanor nodded. "He said the signs fit and didn't fit. At the same time." Constable Merrick looked uncomfortable. "I checked the heater. Looked fine. No leak. No smell." Annie leaned closer. "But someone else said the windows were open. Then another said the windows were closed. Then someone else said one was stuck." Miss Marple took all of it in. Every piece, every shift, every contradiction. These small things mattered. They always did. Eleanor lowered her voice again. "People are afraid to say too much, and afraid to say too little." Miss Marple understood that tone. A village in tension, A truth buried under fear, a death with no clear shape and too many versions. Annie spoke again. One thing is certain, Clara Pierce was alive the night before, and gone by morning. Miss Marple looked at each of them. "Did anyone see her that night?" she asked. Eleanor exchanged a glance with Annie, with Merrick, with the door, with the window. No one spoke at first. Then, someone finally did, and the detail slipped out. Softly, almost accidentally, Miss Marple heard it, and it did not fit at all. Miss Marple walked with Annie Rookwood. The air felt colder near the edge of the lane. The Pierce cottage waited ahead. Small, neat, silent. A silent house always told her something. Annie slowed her steps. "You don't have to go in," she whispered. Miss Marple gave a small nod. "I think I should," she said. Her tone stayed calm. Calm tones made people talk. Annie tapped softly at the door. No reply. She opened it with care. "Mr. Pierce said he left it unlocked," she said. The words felt uneasy. Miss Marple noticed the discomfort. The sitting room stood in perfect order. Too perfect. Cushions straight. Books arranged tightly. No sign of a struggle. No sign of a hurried movement. No sign of a lived moment. Just neatness. Too much neatness. Miss Marple stepped inside. Her eyes moved gently. Each detail mattered. Every small thing held weight. She moved at her own pace. Slow, soft, silent. 2 teacups waited on a small table, side by side. Both clean at first look, but not quite. One had a faint ring inside. The other looked untouched. Miss Marple leaned closer. She did not touch. She only observed. A small scent drifted from the room. Not strong, not floral, not from tea. Something else. Something she could not name yet. But it stayed in the air. Light, persistent, out of place. Annie watched her. No movement, no sound. Miss Marple said nothing. She studied the windows next. One latch hung crooked, broken, old break. But the string tied around it was fresh. Too fresh, too tight. The knot held firm. Someone had tried to secure it. Someone in a hurry. Someone thinking ahead. Miss Marple made a mental note. Footsteps sounded outside. A door opened. Alden Pierce stepped in. His face looked stiff. His coat was buttoned high. He saw Miss Marple. He forced a polite tone. "You wish to look around," he said. His voice stayed low, controlled. "Practiced." Miss Marple gave a small nod. "Yes, thank you," she said. Her tone stayed warm. People spoke more easily with warmth. Alden Pierce moved toward the window. He touched the latch. "It's always been like this," he said. Too fast, too firm, too clear. He spoke as if he had rehearsed the sentence. Miss Marple noticed the speed. Speed always betrayed something. He pointed at the teacups. "She liked evening tea," he said. "That must be hers. I didn't drink mine." His eyes avoided the table. A small avoidance, but a clear one. Annie Rookwood shifted beside the door. Her hands tightened on her scarf. She did not look at Alden. A small sign, a meaningful silence. Miss Marple stepped closer to the cups. Her eyes sharpened. Softly, quietly, her gaze stopped on the rim of one cup. A faint mark sat there. Thin, white, out of place. She leaned in slightly. No touch, just sight. Miss Marple sees something on the teacup rim and stops. Miss Marple sat with Eleanor Gray. Annie Rookwood stayed near the fire. The room felt warm, but the people did not. Everyone held something back. Everyone carried a worry. Miss Marple waited. She let the silence settle. Silence often opened more than questions. Eleanor spoke first. "The marriage was short," she said. "Too short to fall apart. Yet it did." Annie nodded. "They married last spring. Quickly. Very quickly." Her tone hinted at more. Miss Marple noticed. Eleanor folded her hands. "Alden Pierce wanted control," she said. "He liked things done his way. Always his way." Clara tried to adapt, but she was young, and she had her own views. Annie added a small detail. He watched her often, more than needed. Her voice softened. Sometimes she flinched when he entered. Miss Marple stored each word. Small reactions always mattered. Money slipped into the talk next. Eleanor looked uneasy. Clara had a small inheritance, she said. She kept it in her own name. Alden disliked that. Annie added more. He asked her to move it to his account. She refused. They argued over it. Miss Marple nodded. Money and control often sat close together, closer than people liked to admit. Annie leaned forward. There was someone before Alden, she whispered. Before the wedding. Miss Marple waited. Names mattered. Patterns mattered. James Redley, Annie said softly. He and Clara had been close. Very close. Everyone thought they would marry. Eleanor looked down. Clara never talked about him. Not after her wedding. But the sadness showed when his name came up. Miss Marple understood that kind of silence. A past not forgotten. A past that still lived quietly. Constable Merrick stepped in from the hall. He had returned to check on Eleanor. He overheard the last line. There was also a man from London, he said. A visitor, not local. Miss Marple turned slightly. A man? Merrick nodded. A Mr. Callum Royce. Arrived last week. Well-dressed. Polite. Didn't stay long. Came to the Pierce cottage. Clara answered the door. Eleanor lowered her voice. Clara looked frightened when she saw him, but she let him in. Miss Marple asked softly, Did Alden know? Annie shook her head. No, he was at work. Or, that's what Clara said. Another hesitation followed. Hesitations always mattered. Eleanor glanced at Annie. There were arguments, she said. More than people realized. She tried to hide them, but we heard things. Raised voices, short words, long silences. Miss Marple listened carefully. Patterns began to form, not complete, but shaping, slowly. Annie hesitated again. She looked toward the window. Then back to Miss Marple. Something weighed on her. A detail she had not shared. A detail that pressed on her. Voice. She drew a small breath. There was also a visitor, she said quietly. A visitor seen at a time no one expected. Then Annie Rookwood mentions a visitor at a time no one expected. Miss Marple walked with Constable Merrick toward the village inn. Cold snow crunched under their feet. She kept her steps steady. Small clues waited ahead. They always did. The innkeeper, Mr. Talbot, stood by the counter. He looked nervous. Too nervous for someone who claimed to know nothing. Miss Marple greeted him softly. He relaxed a little. Her gentle tone usually helped people speak. Mr. Talbot, she said. You saw Mr. Pierce yesterday? He nodded. Yes. He came in around 6. Merrick frowned. You told me 7. The innkeeper tensed again. I may have misremembered, he said. His eyes fell to the floor. Miss Marple noticed the shift. People looked down when truth felt heavy. She asked another soft question. Did he stay long? No, Talbot said. He left quickly, didn't finish his drink. Miss Marple nodded, and Clara was found at 8. The man swallowed hard. Yes, that's what I heard. The change in times did not match, not even close. Miss Marple felt the pattern move. The cracks were showing. Outside, Merrick pointed to a trail in the snow. He had kept it undisturbed. These are the footprints, he said. Seen that morning. Miss Marple bent slightly. She studied the prints. Short, light, narrow stance. These cannot be Alden's, she said. Her tone was calm. No accusation, just logic. Merrick nodded. He has larger boots, much larger. The prints suggested someone smaller, someone lighter, someone moving quickly, someone who knew the garden. Another contradiction, another shift in the truth. Miss Marple stood again. Who else was near the house? She asked. Merrick sighed. Too many stories. Mrs. Pritchard said she saw a light at the window. She swears it was around 9. Miss Marple considered that. So Clara was alive then? Merrick shook his head. We don't know. She thinks she saw movement, or a shadow, or a flicker. Miss Marple walked a few steps. She rarely lies, she said. But she often misjudges distance. A light at 9 meant the timeline stretched longer than anyone admitted. Alden Pierce claimed he was nowhere near the cottage at that hour. The innkeeper claimed he left early. The footprints suggested a different visitor altogether. Then came the telegram. Miss Marple asked Merrick about it. Where was it delivered? To the Pierce home, he said. At 6:30. Miss Marple paused. Who opened the door? No one, Merrick said. It was slipped through the slot. And Clara never read it? Merrick shook his head. It was found unopened. Miss Marple felt the tension sharpen. Telegram delivered. Not read, not moved, not touched. A sign that someone entered the house after delivery. Too many times felt wrong. Too many movements conflicted. Too many people told half-truths. Miss Marple pieced the pattern silently, slowly, carefully. And the pattern made one thing clear. Miss Marple realizes the alibi is already broken. Miss Marple returned to the Pierce house. The door creaked softly. The room felt colder than before. Still, quiet. Too quiet for a home that once held 2 people. She stepped inside slowly. Annie Rookwood followed her. She stayed near the doorway. She looked uneasy. Miss Marple moved with soft steps. Her eyes traveled across the room. Every detail mattered. Every detail had weight. She walked to the window first. The latch still hung crooked. The broken piece had dust. Old dust. Thick dust. But the string tied around it looked new. Fresh fiber. No dust settled on it yet. Someone tied it recently. Not days ago. Not weeks ago. Recently. Miss Marple touched nothing. She only looked. Her gaze followed the knot. It was a clean knot. Firm. Precise. Someone wanted that window held tightly shut. She turned to the writing desk. A sheet of paper had a faint indentation. A line. Then another. Then nothing. Someone started a note. Then tore it away. Miss Marple leaned closer. The impression was shallow. The hand that wrote it paused. Then stopped. Then tore the page. She wondered what words had been there. Fear, warning, a goodbye. It could have been any of these. Or something worse. Under the desk lay tiny paper fragments. White pieces. Uneven. Torn fast. Miss Marple bent slightly. She looked without touching. The pieces were too small to read. Someone had destroyed the words with purpose. A message removed, or a secret erased. She moved to the chair next. A faint white powder sat on the arm. Thin, soft, barely visible. Not flour, not dust. Something else. Something from a container. She made a quiet mental note. Small powders came from small bottles. Small bottles often held medicine. Or something harmful. Annie stepped forward. "What do you think it is?" she whispered. Miss Marple shook her head. "Not yet," she said. "I need more." Her eyes shifted to the gas heater. It sat near the far wall. Plain, ordinary. But ordinary things often held the most truth. She knelt slightly. She examined the valve. It had scratches on the metal. Not old scratches. New ones. Fresh marks. Too clean, too sharp. Someone turned it hard. Someone forced it. Someone adjusted it with intention. Miss Marple stayed still for a moment, thinking, layering details. Each clue formed part of a shape. The house was too neat. The window string too fresh. The letter destroyed too quickly. The powder too misplaced. The valve too recently scratched. Annie watched her quietly. She knew Miss Marple was forming the truth, piece by piece. Quietly, calmly. Miss Marple leaned closer to the heater. Her eyes narrowed. A tiny mark sat at the base. Small. Thin. Out of place. Almost hidden. But not enough to escape her. And one tiny mark on the heater changes everything. Miss Marple walked toward Mr. Harwood's gate. He stood by the fence, hands in his pockets. Face worried. He waited for her. He had something to say. Something he had not shared before. She greeted him softly. "Mr. Harwood," she said. I believe you saw something last night. He gave a slow nod. Yes, I suppose I did. He glanced at the snow, then at the Pierce house, then back at Miss Marple, a sign of uncertainty. I wasn't sure if it mattered, he said. His voice stayed low. It was late, very late. Miss Marple waited. Patience always opened the door. People talked more when not pushed. Mr. Harwood continued. I saw a lantern in the Pierce garden. Miss Marple raised her eyebrows. A lantern? He nodded. Yes, just after 9. That time mattered. Miss Marple held the detail carefully. Everyone claimed the house was dark. Everyone except Mrs. Pritchard. Now Mr. Harwood supported her. Where exactly? Miss Marple asked. He pointed toward the hedge line. Near the back path. Someone was moving there. Someone? She asked. Yes, he said. Not Alden Pierce. Too small. Too light. Not his shape. Miss Marple considered that. A woman? Possibly, he said. Or a young man. Hard to tell with the lantern glare. He shifted again. His boots scraped the snow. His voice trembled slightly. The figure wasn't walking normally, he said. They were moving quickly, looking behind them, like they were worried. Miss Marple nodded slowly. Fear often changed posture, changed footsteps, changed behavior. Mr. Harwood continued. I thought it was Clara at first, but it didn't feel right. Clara never moved like that. Miss Marple studied the garden. Did the person enter the house? She asked. Mr. Harwood shook his head. No, the back door was locked. I checked it this morning with Merrick. Locked tight. Locked from the inside. That meant someone inside locked it. Or someone outside planned something. Miss Marple stored that detail. What about footprints? She asked. Mr. Harwood pointed to the hedge. Right there. Snow was fresh last night. No wind. Miss Marple walked closer. The prints remained clear. Light steps. Small steps. Pressed into the snow. Leading from the lane. Through the hedge. Toward the garden. Annie Rookwood joined her. I saw those earlier, she said. They looked odd. Too light to be Alden's. Miss Marple agreed. Much too light, she said. Far too neat. Mr. Harwood swallowed. There's something else, he whispered. I didn't mention it before. Miss Marple looked up. She waited. She always waited for the last piece. People saved the most important part. Always. He drew a breath. The prints stop at the hedge, he said. Then continue into the garden. He pointed again. But the prints do not return the same way. Miss Marple sat at Eleanor Gray's small table. Constable Merrick placed a thin envelope in front of her. The paper looked ordinary, but the timing was not. Timing never lied. People did. She picked up the envelope without opening it. She looked at the stamp, the time mark, the crease, the dust. Small things, small clues. They mattered most. This is the telegram? She asked. Merrick nodded. It arrived at 7, he said. Delivered by young Philip Turner. Same boy who always does the evening run. Miss Marple ran her finger along the fold. Who was it addressed to? Clara Pierce, Merrick said. Only her name. Miss Marple set the envelope down. And the sender? Merrick hesitated. Initials only, he said. Junior. Annie Rookwood, standing near the door, reacted first. James Redley, she whispered. She looked frightened, then guilty for knowing the name. Eleanor Gray swallowed. She never spoke of him, not after the marriage. Miss Marple nodded once. People hide names, she said. They do not hide urgency. Merrick leaned closer. There was a short message, he said. 1 line. Miss Marple looked at him. Read it. He cleared his throat. Clara, please answer. Urgent. The room tightened. Softly. Quietly. But it tightened. Miss Marple repeated the key word. Urgent. Annie whispered the same word. Urgent. Miss Marple focused on Merrick. The telegram arrived at 7, she said. And the boy knocked? He did, Merrick answered. He waited. No reply. Eleanor spoke softly. Clara should have heard him. She was always near the sitting room at that hour. Miss Marple tapped one finger on the envelope. Simple rhythm, steady rhythm, her thinking rhythm. "The telegram was not opened," she said. "Not even touched." Merrick nodded. "It looked untouched when we found it. Right there on the hall table." Miss Marple raised her eyes. "In the hall?" "Yes," Merrick said. "Inside the house." Miss Marple paused. Important things always sat quietly, never loudly. This one sat quietly now. "So the telegram boy slipped it through the slot," she said. "In the evening." Merrick nodded. "Yes, and no one picked it up," Miss Marple added. "No one moved it." Merrick nodded again. "Yes." Miss Marple leaned back slightly. Her voice stayed calm. Her words remained simple. "Then how," she asked, "did it end up lifted from the floor and placed neatly on the hall table?" Annie Rookwood covered her mouth. Eleanor froze. Merrick stared at the wall. The answer waited between them. Quiet. Clear. Not spoken yet. Miss Marple folded the envelope. Her tone dropped to a soft truth. "Meaning someone else must have been in the house." Miss Marple sat in Eleanor Gray's parlor, hands folded, eyes steady. The room stayed quiet. Only the small clock ticked. Soft. Even. Comforting to most. But not to Miss Marple right now. She thought about Alden Pierce. His tone, his movements, his answers. Each one too neat. Too controlled. Control was his nature. Control was also his weakness. She reflected on the marriage. Short. Uneven. Built in haste. Haste often covered deeper tension. She had seen that before. Many times. In many homes. In many villages. People changed, but patterns did not. Clara had a soft heart, a young heart, a hopeful heart. She came into marriage with trust. Alden came with rules. She tried to follow them. She tried to be patient. But patience wore thin when freedom felt smaller each day. Miss Marple remembered the small signs. Clara flinching. Clara lowering her voice. Clara stepping aside too quickly. Signs people overlooked. But Miss Marple never overlooked small things. She thought of the inheritance. Money invited pressure. Money invited fear. A controlling husband often pressed harder when money stayed out of reach. And Clara refused to surrender hers. A quiet refusal. A private refusal. But a refusal, all the same. Miss Marple knew what that meant. Pressure at home. Arguments in whispers. Short words behind closed doors. Then long silences afterward. The pattern was familiar. Too familiar. She recalled similar cases. A woman leaving. A man refusing to let her go. Threats hidden inside soft voices. Warnings disguised as care. She had seen it in Street Mary Mead. She had seen it years ago in Highbury Lane. She had seen it during a tea visit in Milchester. Men who feared losing control could be dangerous. Dangerous in quiet ways. Clara planned to leave. Miss Marple felt certain. The torn letter hinted at it. The powder hinted at it. The broken timeline hinted at it. Even the fresh string on the window hinted at it. Every clue whispered the same truth. Alden Pierce knew. He must have known. People sensed change in the ones they watched closely. He felt her slipping away. He feared it. Fear made some husbands cling. Others threatened. A few turned cruel. A rare few turned lethal. Miss Marple understood his type. Controlled speech. Controlled posture. Controlled explanations. Controlled emotions. Too much control always meant a storm had already passed. Or a storm was yet to come. She rested her hands on her bag, thinking, layering each detail, shaping the truth quietly. Why Clara had died felt clear. The motive sat in plain sight. Jealousy, fear, control, the oldest reasons in human life. Miss Marple breathed slowly. She now knew the why, but not yet the how, and the how mattered most. She now knows why the tragedy happened, but not yet how. Miss Marple stood in the Pierce sitting room again. She looked at the window first. The string told the story. Quietly. Clearly. The dust was old. The knot was new. That meant only one thing. Someone tied it the night Clara died. Someone wanted the window shut from outside, not inside. Miss Marple traced the path in her mind. A person stands outside. They pull the window open. They slip a string through the latch. They close the window again. They tug the string tight. The window locks, from the outside. Clean, silent, quick. A simple trick. A trick she had seen before. Once in a cottage near Little Darning. Once in a case in Street Mary Mead. People think small windows hide secrets. But small windows reveal plans. She turned toward the snow path. Footprints told another story. Someone walked in. Light steps, soft steps. A small figure. Not Alden Pierce. His boots were heavier, his stance wider. These prints belonged to someone else. Then the prints turned, changed direction, moved through the hedge, moved toward the garden, carefully, quietly, avoiding the main path, avoiding notice. Miss Marple thought it through. Erase the prints with fresh snow? No fresh snow came. But someone could step into older tracks. Someone could follow their own line back. Someone could leave fewer traces than expected. She studied the heater next. The valve marks were sharp, too sharp. Someone turned it up hard enough to force it, hard enough to make it dangerous. She knelt slightly. She touched nothing. She looked closely. The scratches angled downward. A rushed angle, a tense angle. She pictured the moment. A person kneels. A person adjusts the valve, sets it to a deadly level. Too high. Much too high. Then stands. Then wipes the handle, but leaves the scratch. One thin mark. One mistake. She turned her attention to the tea tray. 2 cups. One used. One not touched. One rim carried a faint powder. White. Thin. A sleeping powder, most likely. Something mild. Enough to weaken Clara. Slow her. Make her unable to rise. The room told the sequence. Clara drinks her tea. She grows tired. She feels faint. She sits. She lies back. She cannot stand. The gas rises. Slowly. Silently. She slips into unconsciousness. She cannot call out. She cannot open a window. She cannot save herself. The visitor leaves. The window string is pulled tight. The door is locked. The house looks peaceful. Too peaceful. The perfect false scene. Miss Marple breathed slowly. The plan was simple. Cold. Careful. Planned ahead. Executed quietly. The method was clear now, but the hand behind it was clearer still. The method is clear now, and so is the hand behind it. Miss Marple walked toward the Pierce cottage. Slow steps. Calm steps. She held her bag lightly. Her face stayed gentle. Her mind stayed sharp. Alden Pierce stood near the gate, hands stiff, jaw tight. He seemed to wait for her, not by plan, but by instinct. He nodded once. "Back again," he said. His tone tried to sound steady. It did not succeed. Miss Marple smiled softly. "I wanted to speak with you," she said. Her voice stayed calm. Calm voices disarm people. Calm voices make truths slip out. Alden stepped aside. He let her pass into the sitting room. He followed slowly. He kept a careful distance. Too careful. A man measuring every step. Miss Marple sat down first. Alden remained standing. He held the fire poker without noticing. His grip too tight. His knuckles pale. A small detail. A revealing one. She glanced at the heater, then back at Alden. Nothing direct. Nothing sharp. Just a soft shift of the eyes. "You must be tired," she said. "Losing someone is heavy." Alden nodded. He did not sit. His shoulders stayed stiff. He looked at the floor, then at the window, then away from Miss Marple. She continued gently. "I hear you visited the inn last night." He blinked. Quickly. Too quickly. Small reaction. But reactions mattered. Always. "Yes," he said. "A short visit." Miss Marple nodded. "Mr. Talbot said you arrived at 6. Alden swallowed. "I did." He later said 7. Miss Marple added softly. Her tone did not accuse. It only stated. Alden's hand tightened on the poker. Not much. Just enough. People misremember, he said. His voice felt strained. Miss Marple nodded. Of course. Times can confuse people. She paused. She let the quiet sit. Quiet always pushed the truth forward. The footprints outside, she said. Quite small. Alden shifted. I don't know about that. Miss Marple folded her hands. Very light steps, she continued. Not your size. His jaw locked. A small twitch. A tiny tremor in his hand. Miss Marple kept her tone soft. I also heard about the telegram. Alden blinked again. The one Clara received? Miss Marple nodded. The unopened one, placed neatly on the hall table. Alden looked away. His breath tightened. He placed the poker back by the fireplace. He did it too fast, too tense. Miss Marple leaned back gently. You were not home then, she said. At least, that is what you said. Alden's shoulders rose slightly, then lowered. He finally Saturday. Slowly, like someone preparing for something. His hand still shook, just a little. Miss Marple watched without staring. Her presence stayed calm. Her questions stayed light. Her meaning stayed clear. Alden lifted his head. His voice dropped to a low tone. Not angry, not loud, just careful, very careful. He asks her, Why are you truly here, Miss Marple? Alden Pierce sat stiffly in the chair. Miss Marple stayed quiet. Silence worked better than force. Silence revealed more than questions. She let the room settle. She let his thoughts unsettle. He looked toward the window, then back to the fire, then at the floor. He avoided her eyes. People avoided eyes when truth pressed too close. Miss Marple folded her hands. Her voice stayed soft. You seem tired, Mr. Pierce. He nodded once. A slow nod. A nod that carried weight. I haven't slept, he said. His tone was flat, emotionless, but controlled emotion was still emotion. She leaned slightly forward. Guilt is heavy, she said, not accusing, just naming a feeling. Alden flinched. Small, barely there, but still a flinch. Why would I be guilty? He asked. His voice tightened at the end. Miss Marple stayed calm. I did not say you were, she said. I only noted the weight you carry. Alden's jaw clenched. He looked at the door, then at the window again, as if checking his escape routes. But escape routes fail when logic closes them. Miss Marple let the logic speak. The in-time does not fit, she said. Your prints do not match. The telegram moved when it should not have. The heater valve shows a fresh scratch. And Clara was frightened recently. Alden's breathing changed. Shorter, shallower. He rubbed his palm on his knee. He did it again. A nervous rhythm. Miss Marple continued gently. No one suspected much at first, but small things add up. They always do. Alden shifted again. He gripped the chair edge. His fingers shook, not from cold, from pressure, from the truth, catching him. Miss Marple kept her voice level. I know she planned to leave, she said. She tried to write a letter. She tore it. Someone destroyed it. Alden closed his eyes. A slow breath escaped him. He looked older suddenly, worn, exhausted. You don't understand, he whispered, barely audible, barely formed. Miss Marple did not interrupt. She allowed him space. Truth needed space. Truth needed quiet. Control slips, she said softly, when one tries too hard to keep it. Alden opened his eyes again, red around the edges. He stared at the floor. He no longer fought her logic. He only tried to keep his voice steady. He failed. I only wanted things to stay the same, he murmured. She changed. Everything changed. Miss Marple nodded gently. People grow, she said, and some cannot accept that. Alden's face tightened. His breath caught. He swallowed hard. His shoulders lowered. The fight left him. Slowly, quietly, completely. Logic had backed him into the last corner. No shouting, no anger, just a man pressed between truth and memory. His voice cracked. Just once. A small sound. A breaking sound. His voice breaks, and he finally whispers what he did. A knock sounded at the Pierce door. Soft, even, calm. Miss Marple turned slightly. Alden Pierce did not move. He stared at the floor. His hands hung loose now, all resistance gone. Constable Merrick stepped inside first. Inspector Halcroft followed him. Both men paused when they saw Alden. Something in his posture told them enough. Something in his silence confirmed it. Inspector Halcroft approached carefully. "Mr. Pierce," he said. His tone stayed gentle. No harshness. No pressure. This moment did not need it. Truth was already in the room. Alden did not respond. He sat still, breathing shallow, eyes dim, shoulders lowered. Miss Marple stood. She nodded to the inspector. Then she explained. Her voice stayed soft. Her words stayed simple. "The timeline never matched," she said. "Alden claimed he was at the inn at 7. The innkeeper first said 6, then 7, a shift caused by pressure." Inspector Halcroft listened with care, hands clasped, eyes sharp. He respected Miss Marple's calm clarity. She continued. "The footprints in the snow were too small. Not Alden's. Someone else entered the garden first. Someone Clara trusted. Someone who visited that night." Merrick nodded. "We found smaller prints near the hedge." Miss Marple moved on. "The telegram was delivered at 7, she said. It was unopened, yet moved, placed neatly on the hall table. Clara could not have done it. She was unwell by that time." Inspector Halcroft frowned. "Then someone else entered the house." Miss Marple nodded. "Yes, someone entered. Someone who knew where the heater was. Someone who knew Clara was alone." She looked at Alden. He swallowed. He said nothing. Miss Marple continued. "The heater valve was forced, a fresh scratch, set too high, enough to overwhelm a tired woman, especially after tea." Merrick looked up. "She was drugged?" Miss Marple nodded again. "The powder on the chair matches a mild sedative, enough to weaken her, not enough to harm her alone, but combined with gas." She let the sentence settle. Everyone understood. Inspector Halcroft stepped closer to Alden. "Did you turn the valve?" Alden breathed slowly, painfully slow. He did not deny it. He did not nod. He only closed his eyes. Truth sat in the silence. Miss Marple spoke softly. He returned after the visitor left. He saw Clara weak. He saw her frightened. He saw her trying to leave him, and he acted. The inspector sighed. He took out his notebook. Merrick waited. Alden still did not lift his head. Outside, villagers gathered quietly. They heard fragments. They saw Merrick at the door. They saw Halcroft inside. Shock rippled through them, softly, silently, like a village breath held tight. Miss Marple stepped back. Puzzle completed, yet her eyes stayed on the room, on a small detail others missed, a detail that pulled her mind again. But Miss Marple notices one more small detail. The village grew quiet again. People drifted back to their homes. Doors closed softly, voices lowered. The sharp worry of the morning eased. Not gone, but gentler now. Eleanor Gray stood beside Miss Marple. Her eyes looked tired. Her hand stayed still. She whispered, "I never thought it would end like this." Miss Marple nodded. Some endings carried sadness, no matter the truth behind them. Annie Rookwood joined them. She looked shaken. Her scarf slipped slightly from her shoulder. She didn't notice. She kept staring at the path leading to the Pierce cottage. "It feels strange," she said softly, "to know what really happened." Miss Marple placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Truth is rarely simple," she said. "It asks something from everyone." Eleanor nodded. "It asks us to see clearly," she murmured. Miss Marple smiled faintly. "And to remember," she added, "that small things often speak louder than we expect." They walked together toward the lane. The sky felt calm, cold, still. Miss Marple paused at the corner. One thought lingered, quiet, persistent, unfinished. Yet one quiet truth stays with her. as she walks home. Miss Marple walked past the Pierce garden. The snow had settled again. Soft, thin, still. One object waited in the quiet. A folded letter fragment near the hedge, a teacup on the window ledge, a torn string knot on the sill, and a faint lantern mark pressed into the snow. Each piece held a story. Not loud, not dramatic. Just the final reminders of a night shaped by fear and choice. Miss Marple paused. She studied the items one more time. Small things, quiet things. Yet together, they formed the truth. She turned to leave. Then Eleanor Gray hurried toward her, holding a fresh envelope. A new letter arrives, addressed to her. Edwin Harrow here, my friends. Thank you for staying with tonight's quiet mystery. Tell me, where are you listening from, and what moment stood out to you most? I always enjoy reading your thoughts. Leave a comment, settle in, and join us again tomorrow. Another cozy tale waits, another quiet puzzle brews. Tomorrow, another kettle will boil.